The chamber above the dead star was silent. Thousands of representatives filled the vast ringed hall, each seated in floating tiers of light. Species from every corner of the galaxy watched the central platform, where the final vote was about to be sealed. This was not a war council. This was a celebration. The coalition had not lost a major conflict in over 300 years. Borders were stable. Trade flowed freely. Any civilization that resisted coalition law was corrected quickly and quietly. Order ruled the stars. A projection hovered at the center of the chamber, an unremarkable blue sphere, small and distant. "Next item," announced the speaker, its voice smooth and confident. "Resource expansion proposal, Sector 9 Outer." Several delegates glanced at the projection with mild interest. A forgotten region. Sparse traffic. One inhabited system of note. Humanity, the speaker continued. Population, moderate. Technology, outdated by coalition standards. Military presence, negligible. Diplomatic influence, non-existent. A few soft clicks of amusement passed through the chamber. "Are they still there?" one delegate asked. "I thought they faded centuries ago." "They withdrew," another replied. "Closed borders. No alliances. No complaints. No trouble." The speaker raised a limb. "Exactly. A quiet species. Non-aggressive. And sitting on a system rich in metals we require." The vote began to form. Then, unexpectedly, one platform lowered. An elder envoy from a long-lived species stepped forward. Its movements were slow, deliberate, and heavy with age. Few in the chamber recognized it. Fewer still respected it. "I request the floor," the elder said. A pause followed. The speaker hesitated, then nodded. "You may speak." Briefly, the elder's eyes fixed on the blue sphere. "You should not enter human space," it said. A ripple of irritation moved through the hall. "This is not fear speaking," the elder continued. "It is a memory." The speaker tilted its head. "Clarify." "Long ago," the elder said, "when the galaxy burned, there was an enemy no one could stop. Entire systems vanished. Fleets were erased. We called for unity. Most ran. Some hid." The elder's voice grew quieter. "The humans did not." Murmurs spread. The story sounded old. Unverified. Myth. "They fought," the elder said. "They held the line when others broke. They won, but the cost nearly destroyed them." A delegate laughed softly. "If they were so powerful, why are they irrelevant now?" The elder turned its gaze to the chamber. "Because they chose to stop." Silence followed. "They sealed their borders," the elder said, "buried their weapons, and asked only one thing, that no one crosses that line." The speaker's tone hardened. "This council does not base policy on legends." The elder's voice sharpened, cutting through the hall. "This is not a legend. This is a warning." The chamber grew restless. "Human space is empty by design," the elder said. "Their silence is not weakness. It is restraint." The speaker straightened. "Your objection is noted. The vote will proceed." Lights across the chamber shifted from neutral to approval. One by one, symbols glowed. The decision was made. The elder lowered its head. "Then you have chosen war," it said quietly. The speaker ignored it. The coalition fleet crossed the boundary 3 cycles later. It was the largest expedition assembled in decades. Hundreds of ships, carriers, command vessels, planetary pacifiers. Overkill for a minor species, but the coalition preferred certainty. The moment they entered human territory, something strange happened. Nothing. No protests. No transmissions. No defense fleets rushing to meet them. "Scanners are clean," a fleet officer reported. "No hostile signals." The admiral watched the stars ahead. "Proceed." They advanced deeper. They passed silent outposts. Massive stations powered and intact, but empty. Lights glowed. Systems hummed. No life signs. "Where are they?" a commander asked. "Evacuated," another suggested. The admiral frowned. "Too clean." As they moved on, automated beacons activated. Simple markers. Old designs. They did not threaten. They observed. Every movement of the fleet was tracked. Still, no human voice answered. Hours passed. Then days. The fleet reached the outer edge of the human home system. Earth. Sensors suddenly spiked. "Admiral," an officer said, voice tight. "Detecting massive objects within nearby asteroid fields." "Artificial?" the admiral asked. "Yes." "How many?" The officer swallowed. "Too many to count." The asteroids began to move. Rocks split open like shells, revealing dark shapes beneath. Vast structures layered with armor, silent and cold. They had been hidden for centuries. Power signatures surged. Across every coalition channel, a signal broke through. Not loud, not angry, calm, steady. Humans. This is United Human Command. The voice carried no emotion, but it carried weight. You are in violation of a sealed border. The fleet froze. The voice continued. This space was closed to protect you as much as us. The admiral tried to respond, but the channel locked him out. You were warned, the voice said. You were patient tested. You crossed the line. The asteroid structures fully awakened. Lights ignited across impossible hulls. Weapons unfolded, ancient, precise, and terrifying. The human voice spoke one final sentence. Now you have war. The first coalition ship vanished without an explosion. It was simply gone, and the galaxy held its breath. The silence after the first ship vanished was worse than screaming alarms. Coalition sensors searched space where the vessel had been only seconds before. There was no debris, no radiation spike, no wreckage. It was as if reality itself had been erased and sewn back together. Confirm loss, the admiral ordered, his voice steady but strained. Confirmed, an officer replied. No trace. Ship registry, gone from all linked systems. Fear crept through the fleet. Not panic, not yet, but confusion. Coalition doctrine had prepared them for plasma weapons, gravity mines, even starkillers. This was none of those. This was cleaner. Before the admiral could issue new commands, more asteroid shells cracked open. What had looked like dead rock revealed layered metal beneath, black and scarred, marked with symbols no one recognized. These were not newly built weapons. They were old, ancient, waiting. Human command, the admiral transmitted, forcing authority into his tone. This incursion was authorized by the Galactic Coalition. Stand down and negotiations will. The channel cut. Around the fleet, space bent. Not violently. Precisely. Invisible pressure folded across formation lines. Navigation systems screamed warnings as ships drifted centimeters off alignment. Then meters, then kilometers. Engines fired to compensate, but the space around them refused to obey familiar rules. We're being repositioned, a navigator whispered. They're moving us without touching us. Another ship vanished. Then another. Each disappearance was instant. No warning. No chance to react. The fleet broke formation. Defensive pattern, the admiral shouted. Fire at will. Target those structures. Coalition weapons lit the darkness. Energy lances, kinetic rounds, antimatter bursts. Enough firepower to glass a planet. They slammed into the exposed human constructs. The result was humiliating. Human armor absorbed the attacks as if they were rain. Some impacts didn't even register. Others vanished before contact, swallowed by distortion fields that bent the shots away. Damage? The admiral demanded. None, came the answer. Not even surface scarring. A chill settled over the command deck. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. A new signal forced its way through the chaos, overriding coalition command channels. The same human voice returned, unchanged, unhurried. You are attempting to fight systems that were retired before your oldest war doctrines were written. The words struck harder than any weapon. Your ships are not targeted, the voice continued. Your fleet formation is. Suddenly, dozens of coalition vessels lost power. Not disabled, isolated. They drifted, dark and helpless, sealed inside shimmering containment fields. Human constructs began to move. They did not rush. They advanced slowly, deliberately, as if time itself answered them. The admiral watched in disbelief as one massive structure unfolded entirely. What emerged was not a ship in the coalition sense. It had no elegant lines, no visible bridge, no ceremonial design. It was a weapon platform the size of a moon fragment. Scars ran along its hull. Repairs layered over older repairs. This machine had survived wars no one remembered. You classify yourselves as a peaceful expansion force, the human voice said. So did every invader before you. A junior officer whispered. Why didn't we see them sooner? The answer came from the sensors. They were here the whole time, hidden beneath asteroids, inside hollowed moons, buried in dead orbits. Humanity had turned its own system into a fortress and then pretended it was empty. The admiral swallowed. Why now? He asked aloud, though no one was listening. The human voice answered anyway. Because you did not listen. A single coalition destroyer tried to flee. Its engines flared, pushing beyond safety limits. For a moment, it almost worked. Then space closed around it. Not crushed. Folded. The ship vanished, leaving behind a perfectly smooth gap in the starfield that snapped shut a second later. Panic finally erupted. Ships broke away in every direction. Commands overlapped. Formation discipline collapsed. Coalition doctrine had never accounted for an enemy that controlled space itself. Emergency jump, a captain screamed over open channels. None succeeded. Human interdiction fields had already locked the system. The human voice spoke again, now carrying a heavier weight. This is not punishment. This is containment. The admiral slammed his claw against the console. Then speak to us. You want us to leave? We can withdraw. A pause. The first pause since the humans had spoken. When the voice returned, it was colder. You crossed a sealed border with a war fleet. The human structures halted their advance. Weapons remained charged. You were warned by those who remembered us. The voice continued. You dismissed them. You mistook our silence for weakness. The admiral felt something twist in his chest. What do you want? Another pause. We want you to understand, the human said. The containment fields around the disabled ships collapsed. Just enough. Every coalition sensor suddenly flooded with data. Archives. Visual records. Combat telemetry. The fleet saw fragments of an ancient war. Human ships fighting something monstrous and vast. Fleets burning. Entire stars detonating as last resort weapons. Human vessels ram enemies when guns fail. Soldiers holding lines while worlds evacuated. They saw humans losing, then enduring, then winning. At terrible cost. The data stream ended. Silence returned. You were never our enemy, the human voice said. Until now. The admiral looked out at the stars, at the weapons surrounding his fleet. You could have ruled the galaxy, he said quietly. Another pause. We chose not to, the human replied. That was our mercy. The human constructs began to reposition, not toward Earth, but outward, toward coalition space. The admiral's blood ran cold. You're not defending anymore, he realized. No, the human voice said. You forced a status change. A final message echoed across every channel, recorded automatically by coalition systems. Humanity does not seek conquest. But when a line is crossed, we end the threat completely. The human fleet began to move. And across the galaxy, alarms that had not sounded in centuries began to wake. The first alarm reached the coalition capital before the battle reports did. It was not a warning siren. It was a system anomaly notice, quiet, automated, easy to ignore. A minor disruption detected along a major trade corridor. Navigation instability. Jump variance outside acceptable margins. Then came another, and another. Within minutes, entire sectors began reporting the same issue. Ships were failing to arrive on schedule. Jump exits were drifting off target by thousands of kilometers. Some vessels emerged light years from their intended destination. At first, analysts blamed calibration errors. Then the deep space monitors started going dark. On the edge of human space, the coalition invasion fleet no longer resembled an organized force. Ships drifted inside containment zones, unable to move or communicate beyond tight beam internal links. Others were still active, but boxed in by invisible boundaries that bent space like glass around them. The admiral stood frozen at the command dais, watching tactical displays rewrite themselves faster than his crew could understand. They're not attacking everything, an officer said, voice shaking. They're isolating us. Human constructs moved again, but this time, they did not fire. Instead, space itself shifted. Distances stretched. Angles twisted. Coalition sensors reported impossible readings. Two ships that appeared meters apart were suddenly registering as thousands of kilometers away. They're rearranging the battlefield, the admiral whispered. A new human vessel emerged from behind Earth's shadow. Unlike the weapon platforms, this ship was smaller. Still massive by coalition standards, but shaped differently. Less brutal, more deliberate. It carried markings, not symbols of conquest. Names. The coalition translators struggled, then locked onto a meaning. Memorial Fleet. The admiral felt his throat tighten. A transmission followed, separate from the earlier command channel. This one was broader, broadcast on frequencies used for civilian traffic, emergency relief, and diplomatic contact. The human voice changed tone, not softer, but heavier. To all coalition worlds, it said, "This message is not for your military alone." Across the galaxy, screens flickered. Merchants, governors, citizens, they saw the same thing. Human ships moving with calm certainty, ancient and scarred, emerging from places no one had ever thought to look. Hidden systems, dark orbits, dead stars. Humanity had not stayed in one place. They had prepared everywhere. On a distant trade hub, a dockworker watched as a human ship slid into real space without warning. No weapons powered. No threats issued. Just presence. The station's traffic control froze. Then the human broadcast reached them. "We are not here for your people," the voice said. "Remain calm. Follow instructions. You will not be harmed." Emergency lights flickered on as coalition security scrambled. But no shots were fired. Human drones deployed, not weapons, but scanners. They mapped the station, identified military assets, then quietly disabled them. Guns powered down. Missile bays locked themselves shut. The dockworker stared. "They're fixing things," someone whispered. "Stabilizing the station." It was true. Structural weaknesses long ignored by coalition management were reinforced. Life support fluctuations corrected. Radiation leaks sealed. Then the human ship left. No demands. No occupation. Just a message left behind. This is what restraint looks like. Back at the invasion fleet, the Admiral received updated intelligence from Coalition High Command. Or what remained of it. "Admiral," the channel crackled. "We are losing control of strategic space." "Explain," he demanded. "Human forces are appearing across multiple sectors. They are not attacking worlds. They are disabling fleets, isolating military infrastructure. Every attempt to respond is predicted." The Admiral closed his eyes. "They're inside our planning loops," he said. "They know what we'll do before we do it." "Yes," the High Command replied. "And they're acting first." A pause followed. Then, quietly, "The Council is in an emergency session." The Admiral almost laughed. The human voice returned to the trapped fleet. "You are observing Phase 1, it said. Containment and stabilization." The Admiral clenched his claws. "Phase 1 of what?" Another pause. "Correction," the human replied. "Phase 1 ended when your fleet crossed the border." A ripple of energy passed through the system. Several human weapon platforms powered down. Others reoriented away from Earth, toward the stars beyond. "Phase 2, the voice continued, is education." Suddenly, the containment fields around the fleet thinned. Not enough to escape, but enough to see. Space opened like a curtain. The coalition ships were forced to witness what lay beyond the system. Human fleets moving in disciplined waves. Not chaotic, not rushed. Each group had a purpose. Some headed for shipyards, others for military academies, others for weapons depots hidden behind civilian facades. Wherever they arrived, the same pattern followed. No orbital bombardment, no terror tactics, just precise removal of military power. And everywhere, civilians were protected. The Admiral felt something crack inside him. "You could have destroyed us," he said to the empty bridge. The human voice answered anyway. "We still can." In the coalition capital world, the council chamber descended into panic. Delegates shouted over one another. Emergency feeds showed human ships above major military worlds, calm, patient, unstoppable. An elder envoy stood silently at the back of the chamber, the same one who had warned them. The speaker turned toward the elder, voice shaking. "You said they chose isolation." The elder nodded. "Why?" the speaker demanded. "Why give up such power?" The elder's eyes were dark. "Because they learned something the rest of us never did," it said. "What?" another delegate asked. "That winning everything," the elder replied, "does not mean saving everything." A new transmission cut into the chamber. "Humans, this council now understands the cost of arrogance," the voice said. "We will not repeat history for you." The speaker swallowed. "What? What do you want from us?" A pause, longer than before. Then the answer came. "We want accountability," the human said. "And we want the galaxy to survive itself." Outside the chamber, the sky darkened as a human ship entered orbit. Not as a conqueror, as a judge. The elder lowered its head. The line had been crossed, and the lesson had only just begun. The Coalition Council chamber no longer felt like the center of the galaxy. It felt small. Outside the vast windows, a human ship held position above the capital world. It did not threaten. It did not move. It simply stayed there, a dark shape against the stars, patient and impossible to ignore. Inside, fear replaced arrogance. Delegates spoke in low voices. Some argued. Some begged. Some stared at the floor, replaying the moment they had voted yes. The elder envoy remained silent until the human ship spoke again. This session is now under observation, the human voice said. Proceed. The word proceed landed like a weight. The speaker struggled to regain control. You claim restraint, it said, forcing strength into its tone. Yet you deploy fleets across our space. Yes, the human replied. Because restraint failed. A screen ignited at the center of the chamber. Not a threat display. A history record. Worlds appeared. Dates followed. The council watched as ancient footage played, grainy, damaged, old. They saw a galaxy at war with something vast and relentless. They saw fleets of different species break and scatter. They saw planets burn. Then they saw humans. Not as conquerors. As shields. Human ships formed lines in front of fleeing convoys. Human soldiers stayed behind when evacuation windows closed. Human worlds took hits meant for others. The footage did not glorify them. It showed loss. Cities ruined. Ships torn apart. Crews dying to buy seconds. The chamber was silent. We paid the price you would not, the human voice said. We paid it willingly. The footage shifted. The enemy fell. The war ended. What followed shocked the council more than the war itself. Human fleets withdrew. Weapons were dismantled. The shipyards went dark. Borders sealed. The human voice continued. We learned something in victory. Power does not endanger. It attracts them. The screen went black. So we stepped away, the human said. Not because we were weak. Because we were afraid of what we might become. The speaker's voice shook. And now, the human replied. You reminded us why we stayed ready. Across coalition space, Phase 2 continued. Human ships arrived at military worlds without warning. They did not fire unless fired upon. When attacked, the response was brief and final. Fleet after fleet was disabled. At a major shipyard, coalition commanders watched helplessly as human drones sliced through dry dock clamps and powered down reactors from the inside. Security teams never saw them coming. In the weapons research world, experimental superweapons simply stopped working. Codes no longer functioned. Power grids failed only in military sectors. Everywhere, the same message played. You are disarmed. Do not resist. Civilians were untouched. Hospitals stayed online. Food distribution continued. Communication for emergency services remained open. It was war, but unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A coalition general watched his fleet drift powerless above his homeworld. They're not breaking us, he whispered. They're correcting us. Back at the invasion fleet, the admiral received updated orders. There were none. Coalition High Command had lost control of its own forces. Too many fleets were trapped. Too many systems isolated. The admiral stared at the human constructs surrounding him. What happens to us? He asked aloud. The human voice answered. You will remain contained, it said. You will not be harmed unless you attempt to harm others. The admiral's shoulders slumped. And if we surrender? A pause. Then you will be remembered, the human replied. Not erased. That frightened him more than destruction. On a distant world, a coalition child watched the sky as human ships passed overhead. They did not fire. They did not land. They simply moved on. The child asked, Are they monsters? The parent hesitated. No, they said quietly. They are the reason monsters stop. In the council chamber, the speaker finally bowed its head. We accept responsibility, it said. We crossed a line we did not understand. The elder envoy closed its eyes. The human voice replied. Understanding is not required, it said. Respect is. Another screen appeared. Conditions. Demilitarization schedules. Fleet dismantling. Oversight agreements. Shared defense protocols, not led by humans, but enforced by them. The council gasped. You will not rule us, a delegate asked. No, the humans said. We already tried ruling ourselves. Silence followed. Then the speaker asked the question no one else dared. What if we refuse? The answer came instantly. Then Phase 3 begins. The room froze. And what is Phase 3? The speaker whispered. Another pause. Longer this time. Survival, the human said. The human ship outside the chamber powered its engines slightly, just enough to be felt. Not a threat. A reminder. The elder envoy stepped forward at last. You should listen, it told the council softly. This is mercy. The speaker nodded slowly. We will comply, it said. The human voice acknowledged the response. Then the war ends before it truly begins. Across the galaxy, alarms faded. Human ships held position, but did not advance further. For the first time since the line was crossed, the stars felt quiet again. But no one believed the lesson was over. Because humanity had returned. And the galaxy would never forget why they had been left alone. The war did not end with an explosion. It ended with a countdown. Across Coalition space, the same message appeared on every remaining military channel, translated perfectly into every known language. Phase 3 will begin in 72 standard hours. No threats followed. No dramatic music. No images of destruction. Just a timer. 72 hours. At first, many commanders believed it was a bluff. Humanity had already shown overwhelming power. Why wait? Why warn? Then the effects began. Military logistics failed first. Supply convoys bound for coalition fleets began arriving early, or late, or not at all. Navigation routes that had worked for centuries were suddenly unreliable. Jump points shifted by fractions of degrees that made precise travel impossible. Only military vessels were affected. Civilian traffic continued normally. Merchant guilds noticed immediately. Their ships passed cleanly through space lanes that coalition destroyers could no longer use. Freight arrived on time. Passengers were safe. The message was unmistakable. This was not chaos. This was control. On a fortified coalition world, a planetary defense commander stared at his tactical board in disbelief. All missile platforms are online, an officer reported. But targeting solutions keep decaying. Decaying how? The commander demanded. They expire, the officer said. As if the future position of targets is being rewritten faster than we can calculate. The commander slammed his fist on the console. Run predictive models. We did, the officer replied. Human interference invalidates them the moment they finish. Outside the atmosphere, a human ship watched quietly. It did not move. It did not need to. At the coalition capital, the council reconvened under pressure that felt heavier than any bombardment. Delegates spoke quickly now. Gone were speeches. Gone was pride. We cannot fight them, one said. We cannot outthink them, said another. A third whispered. They are deciding when we are allowed to act. The speaker looked toward the elder envoy. You said they chose restraint, it said. What happens when restraint ends? The elder answered without hesitation. Then the lesson becomes permanent. At the edge of human space, the trapped invasion fleet remained frozen, alive, intact, and utterly helpless. The admiral stood alone on the observation deck, watching human constructs drift like silent sentinels. 72 hours, he murmured. A human voice answered, not over comms, but softly, as if spoken nearby. Time enough for choice. The admiral turned sharply. Choice? You've already won. Yes, the human replied. But outcomes still matter. The admiral swallowed. What does Phase 3 mean? Another pause. Phase 3 removes uncertainty, the human said. From you. From us. From the galaxy. That sounds like extermination, the admiral said. No, the human replied. It sounds like a memory. The admiral closed his eyes. You're going to make an example of us. Yes, the human said. But not the one you expect. As the countdown continued, human ships began to move again, but not forward. They repositioned around key coalition worlds, shipyards, and command hubs. Everywhere they appeared, the same pattern followed. Military systems shut down. Defense grids powered off. Weapon stockpiles were rendered inert. Not destroyed. Locked. In one word, a coalition general tried to resist. His remaining fleet fired everything it had. The human response was immediate. The attacking ships vanished, not violently, not loudly, but cleanly, removed from space and reappearing moments later in a distant, empty system, disarmed and drifting. A message followed. This was your warning. No further resistance occurred. At 50 hours remaining, something new happened. Human broadcasts began showing names. Lists, not of enemies, but of ships, units, and commanders who had chosen restraint during the invasion. officers who had ordered retreats, captains who had protected civilians, fleets that had refused to fire on non-combatants. Those names were marked, accounted for. Coalition personnel watched in silence as they realized what humanity was doing, separating responsibility. At 36 hours, the human voice addressed the galaxy again. You are not being punished for existing, it said. You are being corrected for choice. World leaders listened. Civilians listened. Soldiers listened. We will not destroy your civilizations, the voice continued. We will remove your ability to repeat this mistake. Some delegates protested. Others wept. A governor asked, for how long? The answer came calmly. For as long as necessary. At 24 hours, the elder envoy stood alone in the council chamber. The speaker approached slowly. Is there any way to stop Phase 3? The elder considered. Yes, it said. But it requires honesty. About what? About who crossed the line, the elder replied. And who ordered it? The speaker froze. The council understood immediately. As the final hours ticked down, coalition high command fractured. Records were opened. Orders traced. Responsibility narrowed. Those who had pushed hardest for invasion found their systems isolated, not attacked, but cut off. No fleets. No authority. No protection. Human ships surrounded only those locations. The message was precise. Leadership is accountable. At the invasion fleet, the admiral felt his ship regain partial control. Containment fields loosened, just enough to allow communication. A final human transmission arrived. Your fleet will stand down, the voice said. You will transmit surrender codes. You will return home under escort. And if we don't, the admiral asked quietly, then you will watch Phase 3 from the wrong side, the human replied. The admiral did not hesitate. Transmit surrender, he ordered. Across the trapped fleet, weapons powered down. The countdown continued anyway. At 0 hour, Phase 3 began. But no words burned. No stars exploded. Instead, something far more terrifying occurred. Across the galaxy, every coalition military system permanently lost access to autonomous war control. Strategic AIs shut down. Command hierarchies collapsed into local authority only. War, as the coalition had practiced it, became impossible. Humanity had rewritten the rules. The human voice spoke one last time. This galaxy will not sleepwalk into extinction again. Human fleets withdrew, slowly, deliberately, leaving behind silence and certainty. The elder envoy watched the stars and whispered to no one in particular. They did not come back to rule us. They came back to make sure we survived ourselves. And across the galaxy, a single truth settled in. Humanity had crossed back into history. And this time, they were not leaving. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of Phase 3. It adjusted to it. In the days that followed, coalition space felt unfamiliar. Not broken, not ruined. Simply changed. Fleets still existed, but they no longer moved with the confidence of unchecked power. Admirals discovered their command privileges had limits they could not bypass. Weapons responded only after layered confirmation that no civilian harm would occur. For the first time in centuries, war required effort and permission. In the coalition capital world, the council chamber reopened under a new kind of silence. No alarms. No human ship hanging overhead. The absence felt heavier than occupation. Delegates returned to their platforms cautiously, as if expecting the humans to reappear at any moment. Some seats were empty. Those representatives had been removed, not arrested, not executed, but quietly isolated by their own governments once accountability lists were made public. The speaker rose slowly. We are intact, it said, unsure of the words. Our worlds still stand. Murmurs spread. But our authority is no longer absolute. That was the truth none of them wanted to speak aloud. The elder envoy remained, unchanged, watching. A transmission icon lit up at the center of the chamber. Humans. The council froze. This message is informational, the human voice said. Not a command. The speaker nodded stiffly. We are listening. You have regained control of your civilizations, the human continued. What you lost was the ability to pretend consequences were optional. The chamber was silent. You may govern, the voice said. You may trade. You may expand peacefully. You may defend yourselves. A pause. You may not invade. The speaker swallowed. And if we try? Another pause, short this time. Then we will return, the human replied. The transmission ended. No threat followed. None was needed. On a frontier world once known for its military academies, students gathered in an open hall. Their instructors stood uncertainly at the edges. Lessons had been suspended since Phase 3. A new curriculum appeared on their displays. Not human propaganda. History. Unedited battle records. Strategic failures. Moments when entire species had been nearly erased by arrogance. At the end of the archive, a simple human sentence appeared. Power without restraint is extinction delayed. The students sat quietly. No one argued. At the edge of Coalition space, the invasion fleet finally began its journey home. Human escort ships flanked them. Not close, not threatening, but present. The admiral stood on his bridge, watching the stars slide past, feeling smaller than he ever had. A human liaison vessel opened a channel. Your ships will be returned intact, the voice said. Your crews will live. The admiral nodded. And us? You will carry the memory, the human replied. He exhaled slowly. We underestimated you. Yes, the human said. You also misunderstood us. How? The admiral asked. You believed we wanted to be left alone because we feared you, the human replied. We wanted to be left alone because we feared ourselves. The channel closed. The admiral stared at the stars long after. Across the galaxy, stories began to change. Old myths about humanity resurfaced, not as legends of monsters or gods, but as something more unsettling. Guardians who refused crowns. Soldiers who stopped fighting because they won too well. Children learned that humanity had once stood alone so others could survive, and then stepped away so it would not become the next great threat. The phrase human restraint entered common language. It was not a compliment. It was a warning. On Earth, far from alien eyes, human commanders gathered in a quiet chamber overlooking their planet. No celebration here either. Lost reports scrolled across the walls. Names. Ships that would never return. Crews who had died centuries earlier preparing defenses that had finally been used. We held the line, one commander said softly. Yes, another replied. But we crossed it too. A silence followed. We had no choice, someone said. The senior commander shook their head. We always have a choice. The question is whether we like the alternatives. They looked at Earth below. We didn't come back to dominate the galaxy, the commander continued. We came back because no one else remembered why some lines exist. A junior officer asked quietly, what happens now? The answer came without hesitation. Now, the commander said, we watch. Years passed. No new wars erupted. Disputes still happened, but fleets no longer rushed toward them. Councils debated longer. Generals hesitated. Leaders remembered Phase 3. Trade flourished in ways it never had before. Civilian travel expanded. Border skirmishes vanished, not because of fear alone, but because escalation had become impossible. The galaxy learned patience, and it hated humanity for it. But it survived. On a distant world, long after the last human ship had faded from public view, a monument was raised. Not to victory, not to defeat, to a warning. It bore simple words, translated into every known language. Here stands the memory of the line that was crossed, and the species that enforced it. Children asked their elders who built it. The elders answered honestly. The ones who could have ruled us, they said, but chose not to. Far away, in the dark between stars, human listening posts remained active. Quiet. Invisible. Humanity did not retreat again. It did not need to. The galaxy now lived with the knowledge that somewhere, always watching, was a species that remembered the cost of survival, and would never allow the galaxy to forget it again. Because the most terrifying thing humanity has ever done. I learned when to stop. The galaxy learned to live carefully. At first, it was uncomfortable. Border disputes that once would have sparked fleet movements now stalled in endless negotiations. Generals discovered that their authority stopped where civilian risk began. Admirals who had built their careers on decisive strikes found themselves unable to act without layers of confirmation that no longer came easily. Many resented humanity for this. Some hated them for it. But no one dared test the boundary again. On a distant coalition world, a former fleet commander stood before a hall of young officers. His uniform still carried honors from past wars, but his posture was heavier now. We were taught speed, he said. Strike first. Strike hard. End the conflict before it grows. The cadets listened quietly. That doctrine is gone. The commander continued. Not because humanity destroyed it, but because they proved it was wrong. A cadet raised a hand. Sir, are the humans watching us right now? The commander did not answer immediately. Yes, he said finally. And that is why you are alive. Not everyone accepted the new order. In the shadows of coalition space, dissident groups began to gather. Former war profiteers, disgraced admirals, species that believed humans had gone too far. They whispered the same idea in hidden forums and encrypted channels. Humanity is a cage. The galaxy traded freedom for survival. No species should have that kind of power. They called themselves the Continuance. Their goal was simple: prove that humanity was not as omnipresent as it claimed. The first test came quietly. A remote system near the galactic fringe stopped reporting civilian traffic. Not abruptly, slowly. One ship missed a check-in, then another. Then an entire relay station went dark. Coalition authorities hesitated. No military response could be authorized without evidence. Weeks passed. Then a refugee vessel limped into a nearby system, its hull scorched, its crew shaken. They're gone, the captain said. Everyone. Who? Officials asked. The captain swallowed. Something old. Something hunting. The report was filed. And buried. In human space. Deep within listening arrays hidden between stars, the anomaly was detected instantly. Patterns did not lie. Human analysts studied the data in silence. Disappearances. Energy signatures. Movement profiles that did not match any known species. One analyst broke the quiet. It matches fragments, they said. From the old war. The room stilled. That enemy was destroyed, another said. No, the analyst replied. It was broken. There's a difference. A senior commander stepped forward. How long? They asked. Too long, came the answer. On Earth, the Command Council reconvened for the first time since Phase 3. No alarms. No panic. Just gravity. We ended wars, one commander said. But we didn't end the conflict. We were never supposed to, another replied. We were supposed to buy time. The senior commander looked around the table. And time, they said, has a way of collecting debts. A new projection appeared. Not coalition space. Something deeper. Older. Moving. Meanwhile, the Continuance celebrated. Their scouts had confirmed it. Human ships had not appeared in the fringe system. No interdiction. No correction. No warning. They're not everywhere, one leader said triumphantly. They can't be. Plans accelerated. Secret shipyards activated. Old weapons were restored. Illegal, hidden, desperate. If humanity could not see everything, then the line could be crossed again. They did not realize they were already being watched. The human response did not come as fleets. It came as a question. Human envoys appeared quietly on worlds near the fringe, not in orbit, but through secure diplomatic channels. Have you noticed anything unusual? They asked. Governors hesitated, then spoke. Yes, they said, but we thought it was unrelated. The human replies were calm. It is not. Across dozens of systems, the same conversation occurred. And everywhere, the same conclusion formed. Something was wrong. In the coalition capital, the elder envoy felt it before anyone else did. The stars did not feel hostile. They felt familiar. The elder requested an emergency audience. When granted, it spoke only one sentence. The humans are afraid again. The chamber froze. They were afraid when they isolated themselves, the speaker said. And that saved us. Yes, the elder replied. But this fear is different. How? A delegate asked. They are not afraid of what they might become, the elder said. They are afraid of waking up. At the edge of the darkened system, something ancient shifted course. It remembered humanity. Not fondly, not fully, but enough. Its movements were slow, cautious, testing the galaxy that had grown soft in the absence of total war. It tasted fear. It found resistance lacking. And then it felt something else. Attention. A human listening post powered up systems that had been dormant for centuries. Signals passed through channels no non-human species had ever accessed. Deep vaults unlocked. Weapons that had never been deployed checked their status. Humanity did not announce this. It never did. The senior commander stood alone, watching a projection of the anomaly grow clearer. We stepped back once, they said quietly, to let the galaxy breathe. A pause. We won't make that mistake again. Far from councils and fleets, a child on a coalition world looked up at the night sky and saw a human ship for the first time. It did not frighten them. It did not threaten. It simply arrived and stayed. The child asked their parents, "Does that mean something bad is coming?" The parent hesitated, then answered honestly. "It means something bad has already come," they said. And humanity noticed. In the darkness between stars, the ancient presence adjusted its path. For the first time in ages, it felt something like caution, because the species that had once broken it had not forgotten. And this time, they were not returning to enforce a line. They were preparing to end a cycle. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the quiet war was about to become loud again. The first human fleet did not arrive in force. It arrived alone. One ship emerged at the edge of the darkened system where traffic had vanished. No escorts, no warnings, no broadcasts, just a single, massive human vessel sliding out of folded space as if it had always been there. Coalition long-range sensors picked it up seconds later. Panic followed. "This is not an enforcement fleet," analysts reported. "No interdiction fields. No containment net." Then something worse appeared. The human ship did not scan the system outward. It scanned inward, toward the cold, lightless region where stars should have been. On Earth, command screens filled with data that had not been seen since the ancient war. Gravitational distortions without mass. Energy signatures that bent instead of radiated. Movement that ignored known physics but obeyed patterns humans recognized too well. One officer whispered, "It's hunting again." The senior commander nodded slowly. "Yes," they said, "and it's being careful." The room grew tense. That was worse. In the dark system, the human ship finally transmitted. Not to the galaxy, not to the coalition, to whatever was listening. "You are detected," the human voice said. Calm, direct, unafraid. Silence answered. Then space rippled. Something vast shifted beyond normal perception. Not a ship, not a fleet. A presence, spread across dimensions humanity barely understood but had once learned to fight. Coalition observers watching through relayed data feeds felt nausea, fear, and vertigo all at once. The human ship did not retreat. "You remember us," the human voice continued. "That will make this shorter." The darkness moved. Across nearby coalition worlds, systems began to fail, not violently, but selectively. Communications fuzzed. Power grids dipped. Civilian networks flickered, then stabilized. Military channels, however, went dead. Governors panicked. "What's happening?" they demanded. Human envoys answered immediately. "Remain calm," they said. "This is not an attack." "That doesn't feel reassuring," one governor replied. "It shouldn't," the human said. "But it is necessary." The continuance chose that moment to act. Believing humanity distracted, they launched their hidden fleets from shadow shipyards. Old warships, refitted with stolen tech and forbidden weapons, surged toward nearby systems. Their leaders broadcast a message across their channels. "Humanity bleeds attention," they declared. "Now we see if they bleed fear." Their fleets did not make it far. Human ships appeared around them, not emerging from jumps, not arriving through gates. They were already there. The trap closed instantly. Weapons powered down across the continuance fleets. Drives locked. Reactors froze. A human transmission followed. "You are not enemies," the voice said. "You are evidence." The continuance leaders screamed orders. No one listened. Back in the dark system, the human ship fired. Not a weapon. A signal. It tore through layers of space and time, resonating in frequencies the ancient presence could not ignore. The darkness recoiled, not in pain, but in recognition. The galaxy watched through filtered sensors as something impossible became visible. A shape without edges. A mass without center. It twisted through reality like a wound that refused to close. Coalition scientists stared in horror. "That's what they fought before," one whispered. The human voice spoke again. "You survived because we stopped you," it said. "You will not survive this time." The presence responded, not with words, but with action. Entire sections of space vanished, folded inward as if consumed. The human ship was nearly swallowed. Nearly. Human countermeasures activated instantly. Space hardened. Reality stabilized. The ship emerged scarred, but intact. The senior commander on Earth exhaled slowly. "It's testing us," they said. "Yes," another replied. "And it knows we're stronger." The human response escalated. Across the galaxy, listening posts awakened fully. Fleets that had never moved before powered up. Not thousands. Millions. Human war assets hidden across centuries came online, not to intimidate the galaxy, but to surround the threat from every possible vector. Coalition leaders watched in stunned silence. They had thought Phase 3 was the peak. They were wrong. The human voice addressed the galaxy at last. This threat predates your civilizations, it said. It does not negotiate. It does not conquer. It consumes. Images followed, worlds erased in the ancient war, species that no longer existed. Entire histories ended in silence. We stopped at once, the humans said. Barely. A pause. You live because we paid that price. The galaxy listened. And now, the voice continued, it has noticed you. Fear spread, not of humanity, but of what lurked beyond. What do you need from us? A coalition leader asked. The answer was immediate. Nothing, the human replied. Stay out of the way. In the dark system, the ancient presence shifted again, this time retreating slightly. It reminded me of the pain. It reminded me of the loss. And it remembered humans refusing to die. The human ship did not pursue. Not yet. A containment ring was established. An officer reported on Earth. Good, the senior commander said. Begin Phase 4. A pause. Another commander asked, what do we call this phase? The senior commander looked at the projection of the threat. Closure, they said. On a coalition world, the elder envoy stood beneath the night sky, watching human fleets streak past like silent stars. They're not saving us, someone beside them said. The elder shook its head. No, it replied. They're saving existence. The continuance leaders were taken alive. Human custody was quiet. Efficient. Final. You proved our point, a human officer told them. Some minds cannot be trusted with unchecked power. Then you're no better, one spat. The human officer met their gaze calmly. We never claimed to be, they said. We claimed to be responsible. As preparations continued, the galaxy realized something chilling. Humanity had never disarmed. They had only paused. They had waited for the galaxy to forget why monsters existed. Now that something older than arrogance had returned, humanity was no longer enforcing lines. They were ending a war that should never have been allowed to pause. In the darkness between stars, the ancient presence felt pressure from all sides. Human pressure. Measured. Relentless. Unforgiving. For the first time since it had awakened, it began to calculate survival. And for the first time in its existence, it understood fear. Because humanity was no longer reacting. They were advancing.